Happy Friday, everybody. How's it going?
It's a beautiful Friday.
It is a beautiful Friday. It's actually really nice. I'm surprised we're here.
It's spring.
So,
yeah.
yeah,
It's definitely spring. Yep.
it is. But it's supposed to snow next week, which is kind of crazy. So,
Well, it is spring in Utah, yes.
Yeah,
True, yes.
April snows are pretty common. Yeah.
That's awesome. So for people who don't know who you are, do you want to give a quick intro, maybe starting with Miriah?
Yeah, we can start with me. I'm Miriah. Sorry, my camera's flashing at me. So I am a data reliability engineer out of Weave in Utah. I've been there 3 years doing data the whole time. When I'm not there, I run meetups and conferences and talk with people about data stuff, sometimes a lot of Go. So pretty active in the community, I guess.
Yeah.
Very active. Yeah. And maybe sometime today on the show, we can talk a bit about your thoughts on Go and data engineering, because I actually am very excited about the fact that you're pushing Go as a data engineering language. So,
yeah. How about you, Tod?
Tod Hansmann. I am a problem solver of various kinds. I usually do that with software, but not always. I solve people problems as well. And currently, I am a VP of software engineering at Matthews Real Estate, and we just started Catalyst Squad as a consultancy for all of the modern development workflow stuff, the cloud native thinking, all the training that people need for these things like Kubernetes and data and all the stuff. But
That's really cool.
yeah, it's a good year.
Sounds like a pretty packed year. So that's awesome.
and you've been reviewing our book, which we appreciate so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
You're hard on us. We don't always agree with you, but usually you force us to explain ourselves more clearly or to rethink a few ideas. It's fantastic.
Yeah. No, you've been fantastic in that area. So, and when you write a book, we'll return the favor to you too. So.
Oh, okay.
And you're like,
Coming
yeah,
in 2023, right?
I'll just get on that, you know.
Yeah, get started. And no, don't. You'll die young. It's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it at all. Well, awesome. Yeah. Today we want to talk about, I think a place near and dear to us, which is Utah. That's where we live. And I would say we're all pretty active in the local community here. And so just, kind of, the normal conversations we usually have is kind of macro things in data. I kind of wanted to bring it, back to home, so to speak, for us, and get some thoughts on current data landscape in Utah and technology landscape as well. And 2022 Silicon Slopes, community building, mentorship, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I guess what's your thoughts? I guess to the group in general about where things are in Utah with tech and data in 2022. Very broad question.
Every question to you first. So I don't dominate at all.
I don't know. I'm always excited to do more. But I think recently there is. I think there's still a lot of momentum around machine learning, and that's kind of driving how do we get data to do machine learning. But to that momentum, I think there is still a gap in expertise. I think there are some established companies that have expertise in them, but the people there don't leave, and we are lacking expertise for the people that are trying to break into the data career set, companies that are trying to expand their data technologies, and people like me who are trying to broaden their data career base. I think we have a lack of expertise that we share around with that. Does that make sense?
It totally does. Yeah. And actually, this has been a major topic of conversation for Joe and I, both with each other and with a lot of other people recently. Like, there's a talent shortage, and yet no one wants to necessarily help people to broaden their careers to like serve that talent shortage, to address the talent shortage.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Especially in Utah, the scene here, we have a lot of smaller companies compared to like the New York and Silicon Valley kind of ecosystems. They're fairly recent, and they typically have the things that they do already. They're not trying to expand and do other things. I worked at a company a couple of jobs ago, Berkadia. They were starting a data program, much like a whole lot of other companies are, but the lack of understanding and the lack of skills at the time, even in the Utah office, were definitely a barrier to expanding that team like they wanted. So
That's really interesting. Like, what does expanding the team mean in that case? Does it mean like growing the team, or maybe expanding what they could do?
little column A, little column B. I'm taking an aggregate over time, so the conversation is always about one or the other. But overall, you're doing both on pretty much any team when you're a growing company. So
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Wonder why that is then. I think Matt and I have our own theories. Maybe I guess how would you approach like leveling up your skills? Maybe leveling up your team skills in a perfect world.
Miriah.
In a perfect world, I don't know. I think let's just, if you want to talk about, I guess just from my perspective, the journey I've taken to level up my data skills. I started in software, piqued an interest in machine learning, got a book about machine learning, tried to get mentorship in machine learning. That kind of didn't really go anywhere because there was no work in the startups to like do machine learning. And startups was where I was like getting jobs. So it was like, oh, great, you can learn about it, but we don't have any work for you. But we do have some work around some of our data infrastructure. So it's like, great, well, that kind of relates to machine learning. I'll go do data stuff. And then it's like, okay, great, here's our XDBA. Go talk to him. It's like, but I'm not doing database work. I'm building services and gateways to aggregate and expose data, right? Like I'm building something totally different than maintaining a large database, right? I'm not living in Postgres all day. So it's like, okay, now I have to go find the meetups myself. How many people could I meet online that would like chat with me? I mean, so it's like that. I mean, that's kind of how it ended up happening. And then I start attending these meetups. I start talking a lot, and people started coming to me, and they'd be like, oh, do you have experience with Kafka? I want to use Kafka for X, Y, and Z in my data pipeline. How would you do that? And I'm like, I don't know, because I've never used Kafka, because why would I? I work at a Go shop. We're not using and it's like, oh, have you ever used Spark, or have you used Hadoop, or have you used Beam? And I'm like, for a proof of concept, like I don't have 20 years of experience doing all of this stuff. I have 4 years of a narrow skill set. I can advise you on what I've read. But so people are coming to me as a data leader in Utah when there are other people. It's kind of, we're all looking for something and don't know. I guess the problem is we don't know where to look to find it. Right?
Just general advice right there.
I can't ask Joe everything, but he's gonna, But that Joe, there's only one Joe, right? There's only one Matt.
It's true.
And we have to ask people too. Let's be frank.
I'm not saying you don't, but
What's the role of community? I mean, you've done a lot of community work, Miriah. That when I say that you're a data leader, I view that as a key aspect of leading. In other words, leaders often don't have the answers, but like just getting people together to have conversations is the first step. And I think the reality is that we found writing this book is that it's hard to find books to teach you this stuff, right? Like you can find books on very, very specific, narrow things, but it's hard to find a book that really teaches you how to be a data engineer, which is part of the reason you wrote
Well,
it.
and even a data scientist, I would say, or
Agreed.
an ML engineer. Like I think it's because a lot of the materials that you'd find, or it's like ML ops with technology X, Y, and Z or something, right? Or and meetups I think are an interesting avenue too, but it's those tend to be very topic driven and don't really ever go into like the holistic view of a practice and so forth. Yeah, it's interesting. So
I think if you tend to write meetups, those are really powerful too, even though they're topic focused. If you find the right meetup, there's also a community around it. Like the Go meetup here in Lehigh is at Weave, actually. people there are incredibly talented in a lot of different areas. We'll meet and, have a presentation for an hour and a half. And then we'll just hang out and talk for another hour and a half, 2 hours.
Right.
One time we stayed till like 11, and
I was there.
yeah,
Nice.
it's a really good community feel to be able to talk about anything, and depends on what depth you're at or whatnot. I always encourage my mentees to attend meetups, to find some Discord community or something that they can hang out and work with people on whatever projects on, or like answer things. This is going to date me, but back in the day, the easiest way to learn a language or learn a library or learn a tech tool of any kind was to sit in the IRC channel and try to support people by answering questions you didn't know the answers to. Now you can do the same thing kind of on like Stack Overflow to an extent. It's not as dialogue driven, so you're not exploring new things as much. You're just trying to like find an answer and like tack it on. But that is always a good way if you can get into a group or conversation about that and try to explore things that you would never expose yourself because they're not your problems. You're going to learn a lot more about those areas.
And now it's a lot of Slack channels, right? I mean, you have these huge public Slack channels that have kind of replaced IRC for this purpose. Jump on to the Astronomer Airflow channel, jump on to a machine learning channel.
The Forge Utah channel.
Yeah.
The best one. The Forge Utah Slack.
Yes.
Best one.
I would encourage people in Utah though to sign up for the Forge Utah Slack.
We're not in Utah. Why not? I mean, it's funny.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Well, like
we have a lot of
UDEM,
people
right?
around the world on that Slack, and I'm not actually sure why.
That's interesting.
Because I know people around the world,
it's
and I
Miriah.
tell them to join.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
No, but we found the same thing with UDEM, the Utah Data Engineering Meetup. We have people from all over the world attending that. It's not even really.
Well, and speaking
Utah,
at it, but COVID changed all that. I would
COVID
say
changed
before it was
everything,
very much, a localized thing. And I'd like to get your perspective on meetups now that we're kind of getting back into in person. But I mean, virtual meetups I think are cool. It allows us to get speakers that we just normally wouldn't be able to get for a lot of reasons. And now, we've been fortunate to get a lot, but in person is definitely coming back with a vengeance. And I think that's pretty awesome. What are you finding with your meetups right now? Are you back in person?
I mean, we've been doing in person. Well, in person is rough. Like, I don't want to say in person. I want to say hybrid. We have been accommodating in-person attendance since June or July of last year, or August.
Oh, nice.
I don't know. I think it was August.
Yeah.
And we have been maintaining, and we've been, the attendance is not like it was before. Before we were getting 30 to 50 people a meetup easy. And now you get 15 to 25. I think we had 25 at the last Go meetup, and 25, half of them were not the regular. They were new people coming to explore. That was nice. But what I've seen is we're getting a lot more people attending virtually, especially internationally. We get a lot of people that tune in internationally for the hybrid, and we're getting a lot of people that request the recordings. So I think that's one reason. I think Tod brought this up. The reason in-person meetups work and are preferred in a lot of ways is because of the discussions you have after.
Right.
With the people that attended, with the speaker sometimes, with whatever. I've done Twitch-based hybrid meetups. I've done Zoom hybrid meetups. I've done, Google Meet hybrid meetups. I don't think it matters the hybrid, but you get better questions when you have at least half of your people attending in person.
Mm-hmm.
You get better discussion when the people are attending in person, and you get the clap at the end. I'm like, even if the speaker is virtual, that clap at the end saying, "Oh, thank you for speaking," validates all of the work they put into it. And what we do try and do, and it has been very successful with the machine learning meetup, is making sure that the people that attend online or virtual have that Slack or Discord community to join during or immediately after. so that we can like if they're not there in person, they have to have a way to continue the discussion. We've had I think we've had about a sixth. What's a sixth? 15% increase, 17% increase of our membership since the beginning of the year, just doing hybrid meetups on the Slack. And I mean, they may not post a lot, but it's still like it still shows that people want to learn and want to grow, and we have to provide the variety of avenues for them to do so. It also shows that there's a lot of people in Utah that want to learn and that have an expertise. And I think that's something that is really undervalued in the Utah tech scene in general. I don't know about the Utah data scene, but the Utah tech scene, yeah.
What's that, Todd?
I've never really respected the borders, so for me, it's always been the tech scene. And most of my friends were in foreign countries for many, many years.
That's because you've been in the tech scene too long.
Todd is the tech scene.
So, I've been here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we did an event last night, at Starburst. We just did it at TF Brewing down in Salt Lake City downtown. And I think it was like 40, 50 people showed up.
That's impressive.
Yeah, but especially for Salt Lake, on a weeknight at a bar. That was kind of crazy because it was like nobody, But the cool thing about that was, and it kind of confirmed a hypothesis I had where I've always wanted to do the, I call it the meetup sandwich, where it's like you have the networking at the start, the presentation in the middle, then like networking at the end. And if you just get rid of the presentation part and just people show up to network, I guess it's just a networking event at that point, right? But it was really cool. I think it was one of the best, non-meetups we've had. Just the people hadn't seen each other for a couple of years at this point, and it was I think it was really magical.
Yeah.
So,
I technically run the Lehigh Developer User Group, which is a meetup that we've had for 9 years or something. And we would meet twice a month. And the one of them was a talk night, and the others were just hack nights. And they just ended up being like, we're just going to hang out. And so we'd get together at Adobe. There'd be like 4 of us that were regulars, and whoever else joined. And it's fine. It was great. Yeah, I think those are really successful meetups.
Extremely. Cool. Yeah, it's funny how the conversations will drift into tech, and you'll learn a bunch of tech stuff or get direction on like, how do I study this particular obscure topic that's up and coming? And people will exchange email addresses, and they'll get on the same Slack channels. A lot of cool stuff happens in these meetups. I think the other thing you get is just a lot of career advice. I think we all need career advice. Certainly was when I was switching from math and academia to tech, I had no idea what I was doing, and a lot of people gave me guidance, and these kinds of events really facilitate that.
Well, you also get to know people as people, which is cool, not just as avatars on Slack or Discord or something, right? So, you find out some interesting stuff about people, and you become friends. I think that's a pretty cool thing to do. Making friends is nice. And you also get the scuttlebutt, kind of the inside scoops on different companies too, right? So, like, what companies would be cool to work at, which ones you just want to avoid, like at all costs possible. So,
gives you a lot of exposure, gives you a lot of insight, gives you a lot of, they're talking about this company. I heard the same problems over at this company. Maybe it's not the company,
Right.
Yes.
That's fascinating. I mean, Miriah, how did you, and Todd, how did you get started, building your communities and your meetup/developer groups? Why did you do this?
Miriah.
I met people who wanted to speak, and then I approached the organizers and said, hey, I have speakers. Then the organizers gave me their groups. So I just kind of weaseled my way in there. I think, but it was always selfish. Like I was really young in my career, and I wanted to learn. So I just found people that wanted to talk about stuff that I wanted to learn. And I just found ways to get them in front of other people. Like, it was, I don't know. And then, I think I was very fortunate to start in the Go community, start working in Go, and then wanting to do a Go meetup, because that put me in the position to work at Weave when Clint Berry was the CTO, because he wanted meetups. He recruited me because I was running meetups, and he wanted there to be meetups at Weave so that his employees learned, and so that the tech at Weave was something special. And so that put me in a really clear and easy position to get speakers, to work with him, and to kind of create that community, because he, in the position of leadership, wanted that, right? Like, it wouldn't, but because we did Go and he did the Go meetup and I was already doing Go, we just had that connection. I took over the Go meetup from him, and then I give it back to him, and then we kind of flip back and forth depending on who has speakers right now. But yeah, it just, I think, yeah, that's kind of how it started, and then I just took more meetups on after that.
How many meetups do you run right now?
I run 0 meetups alone, but Forge, right? I started the Forge nonprofit.
Oh, cool.
With Clint and a couple other people, but Clint's the most high profile one of them all, because we like to make fun of him sometimes for not coming to meetups.
He never does.
So anyway, but yeah, so we started the nonprofit, and we have 4 formally sponsored meetups that I coordinate through Forge, and then the Go West conference. And then there's quite a few meetups that we don't sponsor directly, but like, if it's a Utah-based meetup, we still want to we want to make sure that you have venues, that you have speakers, that you have all the things. I'm just not necessarily going to give you all of my secrets, just some of them.
Thanks, Miriah. How about you, Tod?
Man, again, I'm so old. I've been programming professionally in some capacity or another for over 25 years. And it was my social piece. Like, I've never stopped doing tech. It's never been just a job. It's always been like the thing that I do.
Right.
And like so many people, I started it because I wanted to write video games, but
that's not why I started, but good for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, so many, not being like a universal principle, but a very common fallacy we fall into. But the community side, I've always been online, and then extending that into like the personal space, especially local community stuff, has been a double-edged sword of give and take. And I think that you just need that relationship with a community in general. Even if it's not like a tech meetup or something, like, you have your social groups, and you have the communities that you belong to, whether it be like your neighborhood or something else. And so making that about tech was just, okay, why not? We are all interested in this. We should talk about it. We should be building a mud or something. And it just falls out from there. And then making that about career advice and mentoring and all that has been just organically falling out of it. It wasn't like a motivation. I tried to do something. I didn't try to review a book. I just got invited to help some friends and ended up doing it.
Doing free work, basically.
Yeah, learn to say no next time. So, no, that's interesting. I mean, similar experiences for me too. I remember Ferris, Shabib, and I, we started SLC Python back in 2013, something like that. And it was simply for the reason that we were too lazy to drive to the Python at the Point in Lehigh. So we're just like, I'm not driving there in traffic. This is back when, and you know, geez, that was almost 10 years ago now. There wasn't, I mean, compared to now, there's no traffic at all, frankly.
Yeah.
Now, like, forget about it. It's basically, for people who don't know that much about Utah, I know that Martin Jones, he said, Utah, I never thought of it. I think he's in the UK or something. So
in Spain? Is it the right Martin Jones? I'll have to look him up.
Yeah, Spain, yeah, one of those places. Yeah, but he's a cool dude. But yeah, it was, for people who don't know, there's basically Salt Lake City, and then you drive a really long ways, i.e. like 20-ish miles or something, to a place called Lehigh, which is where I would say most of the tech activity is happening right now. There's certainly stuff happening in Salt Lake, but Lehigh has the lion's share of the technology, and that, along that way, that's called Silicon Slopes. If people have heard about that, so in other areas across the country, there's Silicon Prairie, for example, and Silicon, I don't know, Beach, I think was Venice Beach. So Martin's in Spain, cool, lovely place. I love Spain. Yeah, there's a surprising amount of tech activity here. I remember talking to one person in Mexico City, and they're like, I never thought of Salt Lake as a city. Like, I don't even know is that a place? And I'm like, yeah, surprisingly it is. And it's actually got a pretty storied history with technology. I think it was one of the first 3 sites for ARPANET back in the day.
And the Utah Teapot. Anyone heard of the Utah Teapot?
Yep.
So it's
University of Utah is huge, and
in graphics. And,
the people who've graduated from there, like Alan Kay, for example, a bunch of people. Ed Catmull. So
see, Nolan Bushnell, I think.
Yeah, Nolan Bushnell. Yeah, he started Chuck E. Cheese.
And Atari before that. Yeah,
I'm just joking.
Yes.
Chuck E. Cheese founder.
That one's still going, I think.
Yeah, but and we have the Silicon Slopes conference here. And I mean, last time I checked, the big one that we had, I mean, that was, geez, how many people showed up to that? Like,
I don't know. I quit going to that one because it was less about the technology and more about the business side. And
the business.
I mean, for me, I don't have a business. I need to sell to people.
Yeah, I get it. But it's a lot of people that show up to these things.
No, for sure. It's definitely just the fact that we can put on a Silicon Slope conference of that size, backed by that many tech software companies. It's quite a statement.
I mean, who do we have speaking at this year's conference? Was it Tim Cook or?
Yeah, somebody? Tim Cook was there.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah, so I mean, a bunch of nobodies, but we're making our way in the world. I mean, Eric Summers, he's a kind of funny comment here. He started the Provo Tableau user group to avoid going to SLC's group. Yeah, fair point. It's basically like you have to teleport these days to get from Provo to Salt Lake.
That's why we do hybrid.
Yeah, that makes a lot
of
sense.
That way you can host them in either place, avoid traffic, and still attend.
Right.
I get a lot of flack for it, but I will say that people should host more things in the Lehigh area because it's like nice and central, and you just get like way more cross pollination between the Utah County and the Salt Lake City areas. That I think it's way more healthy. Now, there's some people like Stuart that are in Bountiful or Layton way up north, and they made their choices. So
it's hard to make good choices. I mean, I'm going to have to start wandering down for more of the Lehigh events now that
same way.
Up again.
Yeah, there are some lunchtime events, and that does tend to have easier traffic access.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, Matt, I guess we'll have to get a road trip going there to Lehigh for lunch trips. So that'd be a lot of fun.
Speaking of Python Joe, what's coming up in Utah?
Geez, I don't know. Maybe PyCon, the big Python event.
It's in Utah?
Yeah, it's the end of month.
It is this year.
Yeah, the next 2 years, I think.
I think next year as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I was MC last year for PyCon Italy for a whole day. And I think they really saw that I do not do enough Python to be any kind of master of ceremonies for that event. But what can I say? I'm not going to say no if somebody invites me to help out with a conference.
PyCon, if you're anyone from there listening, hit up Miriah. She'll
I've already done one PyCon event, Master of Ceremonies. I'll do another one. I'll have to learn more Python.
Yeah, I'm sadly gone during that. I really wanted to show up, but I'm out. So Matt will have to show up in my my place.
That's the plan.
So I'm going to another big conference in Omaha of all places. So, but I think I'm curious to see how many people show up to that. So, but live a very
big
exciting
conference, life. Omaha.
Hey, the Little League World Series is in Omaha, and they always have world record attendance.
College World Series or Little League? Little League?
The college, I meant.
Okay, the Little League, because I'm switching a bunch of kids.
I meant college.
Okay. No, I used to go to that. I'm from Omaha, so I used to go to that when I was a kid a lot, just the College World Series. It was pretty fun to watch. So, yeah. It's interesting. I don't know. Yeah, but it feels like, Salt Lake and Lehigh are almost like two universes, and somehow we connect over Slack groups and sometimes online. But yeah, I think to Matt's point, we'd like to start traveling down there more and doing the getting back to the Lehigh scene.
I mean, that's kind of what we were doing right before COVID, right? We'd started hanging out in coffee shops down there quite a bit because we do work all remote. So we just go work down there. And then everything paused for 2 years. So here we are.
Yeah. In fact, the last event we did was, I think it was over at MX, like on March 11th, actually. Now that I remember, that was the day of the national emergency. So of 2020. Yeah. We were doing an event with Imply and Confluent, a real-time analytics event. And then I was like, we'll see you guys later, maybe. So,
yeah.
Never again.
Never again.
I started at Berkadia that week. I spent 4 days in the office, and then I've never worked in an office since. Time is weird.
It really is.
Yeah.
Are you back in an office, Miriah?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I have the option, but I have. I got a COVID puppy, and I did not get a COVID puppy babysitter. So I stay home, watch my dogs. My team was all remote. Like, I was working with people who weren't like based out of this area of Utah, so it didn't really make sense to even try.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody last night about that. There's one company here that I'll not name, but they spent, I think, reportedly $100 million on an office building.
Ouch.
And then and it's very unusually shaped. So it's not like a standard office building. It's not like somebody like, hey, you want to buy that building? It's like, that looks odd. But, and then COVID hit, and they were all kind of just, nobody went to the office. So I don't know what happens to this thing. The thing being the building. But the thing is also that this company, I think, had, record growth during COVID with everyone working remote. So it's kind of like, did you need to spend that much money on this monument to
Sadness?
Yeah. So it's interesting. But yeah, I mean, there's but then you drive along the I-15 corridor and you see all these new,
they're doing a ton of building for tech companies. It never stopped. I think we've added probably 20 buildings within a 20-mile span of just tech company buildings. So it's like from the like point of the mountain where from the Adobe building, I think that's a good reference. So anybody not in Utah can Google Adobe building in Utah and then go south 20 miles, and there's just been nonstop construction since Utah hit. Nonstop. And that's my entire commute to work if I were commuting to work. It's insane.
Well, and of course, I think we've seen other companies going work from home really affect Utah as well. I mean, we've known a lot of people from Silicon Valley who moved out here during the pandemic because they didn't have to pay San Francisco rents anymore.
Oh, I know like at least 25 people that moved out here during COVID from the Bay Area. Probably more at this point. Yeah.
When you think about meetups, it basically brings some of the Bay Area culture local here. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's I'm very curious to see what happens over the next year, because because there's a lot of talent that's moved here, and they're all just kind of sitting at home now. I'd like for them to get out and maybe attend the Forge meetups and so forth.
Yeah, come to our meetups. We have so much space. We're all naturally socially distanced. I mean, the rooms we meet in are huge. We're not like in tiny rooms. We're in huge, massive meeting spaces for hundreds of people, and we get 20. So,
So like 12 feet of separation from your neighbor.
Just naturally, because we all don't want to sit by each other. We just want to yell at each other. I mean, we're in software for a reason, and it's not because we like to huddle next to the person next to us.
It's true. It's true.
Miriah, are you the extrovert that stares at other people's shoes? That's an introvert joke.
No,
I think the joke is something like the introvert stares at their own shoes, the extrovert stares at other people's shoes.
It's how do you know an extroverted engineer or like an extroverted mathematician? There are variants.
So. I mean, to be fair, I am an extrovert. Which is I think part of the reason why I run so many meetups and am involved in conferences and stuff like that is because I need the social to be happy. But that doesn't mean I want to but I want it to be in my controlled environment, which is obviously tech, which is exactly why Tod started Meetups, right? Like,
Right.
I need the social, and I want to have something. If I do it around the tech scene, then it's the social I want, right? And I think, and that's why I started. I like, just to bring up my conference, since we're gonna the Go West, which has nothing to do with data, but it does have to do with Go, which is the best programming language. But the reason why we started this conference, right, the Go West conference, is to have a space in Utah to bring the talent from everywhere else and people here to get together and talk about tech. And that's all I want. Like, that's all I need to feed my extrovert self, is those kinds of spaces close enough to me where I can go there comfortably and talk about technology, and then go home and play with my dogs and not talk to people for 3 more days. Like, it's great.
Actually, Mark has a good comment here. He says, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised when they are requested to come back into the office. C-suite won't recognize the building they bought as a sunk cost. So
They won't. And that's actually a huge deal. I mean, I do currently work for a commercial real estate investment services company. But yeah, the office building is definitely going to be in less demand. And some people are going to try to force that. There's going to be some very important decisions that people are going to make, and I think it's going to depend on how much leverage people have or don't have in their lives. But like, I'm never going back to an office. I'm never going back to an office. There's no reason.
I don't know. I think you can always, if you need a reason to have a building, just let me know and we'll host a meetup there. But like,
yeah.
Like, that's why we have buildings for meetups. We don't have buildings for working, because I have fiber internet at home, which is definitely not what some of these buildings have.
Oh no, it's pretty terrible sometimes. Like at various jobs, you basically have the entire office sharing like a not great 1 gigabit connection for the entire office versus a gigabit connection for me and just me. It's great.
Yeah, 100%.
Or my 2 gig connection. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I will say that some people do want to go back to the office, and I think that there's a lot of room for that, and that like the hybrid thing is okay. There's some challenges there, like just as 2 examples. One, don't mix teams between remote and in office, because you're just asking to have a very social wedge in that team. And another prime example is, if you're going to do that with a hybrid environment, you need to very strictly keep communication lines managed one way or another. Like, it's one thing to have a team that's remote and a team that's in office. It's another to like have them communicate on one's preference and not another's. It's Conway's law. You can't escape it.
right.
You're shipping your org structure, your communication structure. So make sure that you're deliberate about that. And I don't think we're doing enough of that. And the hybrid's going to just, it's going to ruin things.
It's like a hair shirt.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think another important part of this discussion is that every company we talk to whines about not being able to find talent, and yet they're not being particularly accommodating in many cases. Like, oh yeah, we really need you, but we're only willing to pay this much, and you have to come into the office and you have to move. And it's like, well, if you really want people, then maybe be a little more flexible and treat them better in the interview cycle as well.
Yeah, I will also say on the talent front, I was watching one of your other streams actually, talking about talent, but it's one thing to be, I want talent and I don't want to train and I don't want to invest in the flexibility. It's another thing entirely to say, like, the structure I'm reaching for is what I expect it to be, and I won't actually face like reality or question my assumptions there. Like, why do you need a team of 7? You've decided you need a team of 7. Why? What are you trying to accomplish? And what does the structure of that solve the problem?
Well, it's 7. So
yeah, 7's a magic number. Right?
Aren't all engineering teams supposed to be 7 engineers?
2 pizza.
Yeah, I was actually doing the math behind it. Okay, so how many slices of pizza is that?
I mean, I eat a lot of pizza, Joe knows, so you know.
Same, yeah. So I'm like a 2 pizza person.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, no, hiring is insane right now. We were talking to people all last night about that. Like, hey, do you know of any engineers? We're like, not really that are looking for work, but
Yeah.
like, we know a lot of engineers for sure. So, what are you guys seeing out there in terms of hiring and all that fun stuff?
Well, I think everything I've seen, and I think I get a lot of people who are new to the industry approaching me for jobs.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people.
You too, Todd?
So many.
Just and I mean, I work with, there's a couple boot camps that I've spoken at, one that I work with quite a bit, and they're always, well, how do I get a job? And I'm like, entry level, luck. Senior level, you just have to walk out and say, hey, I'm interested, and you'll have 5 offers in about 5 seconds.
Where senior level can be after a year, in my experience.
Sadly,
yeah, I know. I hate the term
Yeah.
senior level because it's bloated and doesn't. And in Utah, particularly, I think we over leverage the title senior. And it has nothing necessarily to do with skill set or experience, and has everything to do with, oh, but this company paid me so much money, therefore I am. Right. And it's and that's bitten me. I don't know. Don't want to bring this up, but like I feel like
Quiet, Miriah.
but being female in the Utah industry has bitten me more than one occasion on title, on salary, and on dynamics, workplace dynamics. And there's a lot of, I think that's why a lot of these boot camp people who are female reach out to me. They're like, well, how do I get my first job? I'm like, mine was luck. So I hope you're lucky, because nobody else would take a risk on me. So like, and it's like, what about the second? I'm like, the second job's easy from there, because now I'm a female with experience and everybody needs the diversity hire, which is horrible. That shouldn't be the reason you want me, but that is. Like, and so, and then it comes back, oh, yeah, but I've had multiple discussions where I'm like, oh, you're senior and you're making X amount more than me and you have less experience than me. And it's like, well, or you don't want to work with me because I intimidate you because I'm a smart female. Like, it happens all the time in Utah. And I've never worked in tech outside of Utah, but I can tell you that on every time I go to a meetup, I am the only female there. So
not every time. I've been to many of your meetups where you're not the only female there.
Yeah, the Women Who Go meetup was the exception, and we got rid of that because we couldn't get enough Go speakers for both meetups. I think the machine learning meetup, there are 1 or 2. Like, it, especially post-COVID. Post-COVID, no, I'm the only one, unless I get a female speaker. So
I will also say the meetup scene is not necessarily an exact mirror of.
Oh, it's not at all. It's not. I'm not trying to say it represents the.
It's a good signal.
It doesn't represent the work environment diversity stuff.
Yeah.
But it does represent things like mentorship. It does represent things. The people that go to meetups tend to be the people with more experience. So that definitely reflects who's in leadership, who's in management, who's mentoring in the area, right? Like, female mentors. No, that's why I'm doing it. I've never had a female mentor, so I might as well be one to somebody else. Like,
right.
So I can't. So
I mean, I'll ask Tod questions all the time and then tell somebody else, be like, look, you had a female mentor. It's really just me proxying for Tod. I'm kidding. That's never happened. I've never done that.
No, of course not. I ask you questions.
Sometimes.
I do, in fact, especially in the data side of things, which is not my home base, I would say. But yeah, the junior thing. I mean, my son, he's 20. He just started in the industry, and he started.
Oh, wow. Cool.
He graduated high school and just started looking for a tech job as COVID started. So that really put a crinkle in his plans. But I gave him the same advice I give everyone and have for 20 years. It doesn't matter like what level you're at. It doesn't matter what experience you have or what your, I guess, credentials are. Those are proxies for the thing that people actually want, which is, what can you do for me? What can you actually produce? If you can show that you can produce, people will hire you. People will hire you for producing those things, you know? And meetups are a good way for juniors to invest in networking, to show that I can do things.
Or
yeah,
give
let me help
talks.
you on this open source project.
Yep.
Yeah, let me give a talk on this library that I have dove deep on for the purposes of this talk. Like I'm not using it in my professional life because I don't have one yet, or whatever the case may be. But it's a long-term investment, and people like L-Dog was actually really famous for this. We'd have 10 people show up that were completely new every single time, and it was just like fun to just kind of sit down and watch. Hey, how long is it going to be before you ask for a job from people you don't know at this meetup?
That's so cool.
And it was like clockwork. Like give it a moment of time, and they will ask, and then it'll be like, well, if nobody knows you, why would they hire you? Just reverse the roles. Why would you hire someone you just met at a meetup over pizza? Like, this doesn't work. You have to establish a relationship first if you want to network. So that has been harder in COVID times, but I think that it is still valid, especially coming out of it. But even just doing it online in the virtual meetups, like,
I have met and established a rapport with so many people over Twitter. It's not even funny. So can you do it online? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what you brought up, Todd, which is very important, is that consistency matters.
Yeah.
And desire matters, right? Like, so if you attend a meetup or you're consistently posting in these online forums, and then you show that you have that desire to learn and to produce, that's going to go over well no matter what your skill level is, as compared to just, hey, I just graduated, I need a job. They're like, great, so does everybody else.
Right.
Yep. And don't treat it as a quid pro quo. Don't treat it as transactional. Just be friends with people and help them out with things. And it turns out they'll want to help you out with things too. Get coffee with people now that we can do that again. Like, just do the normal social stuff, but talk about tech when you do it.
Have a 2-decade relationship with those people, right?
Yes, exactly. That will totally get you your first job.
It will get you your 8th, and it will get you people that you need.
You're
for
so right.
Your company, and like that's the whole point.
And it helps with recruiting too. Being at the meetups, being consistent, I would say on the other end, right? Because you get the same thing with recruiters. They'll show up and say, "Hey, we're looking for people." You know, it's like, go away. So we don't know you, right? I don't want to.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we had at the Go meetup, we had a recruiter that came to almost every meetup, and not once did he ever announce that he had a job.
Yeah.
Did you trust this person after a while?
Oh, he was great.
I
think he was the nicest person.
That's cool.
And then what he would do though is he would say, "Oh, I'm a recruiter," but people came to him after the fact and say, "Oh, I'm looking," and that's how people gain that trust with him, so that when they are looking, he immediately was able to put them in the job. And from having conversations or listen, he was able to gauge their skill set, able to gauge what they actually knew. Like it was a very interesting thing. But not once did he ever go recruiting to a meetup. He just networked at meetups. And it was, I wish that was always the case with recruiting, that you went, you put the relationship before the job.
Yeah, I wish that too, because recruiters get such a bad name.
They really do. And the other thing that annoys me with the way we do recruiting right now is that recruiters aren't there to help you develop your career usually. In other words, they're not there saying, yeah, why don't you talk to these people about your career options? Like, where do you want your career to go? It's always like, I just want to land you in a job as quickly as possible and get my commission. I don't care about giving you guidance or talking about your future options.
By the way, Turner is starting to do recruiting. So
is there anything you don't do?
Fair enough.
That's a good question.
We don't sell blenders yet. We'll try to stay out of the
we'll get into the blender industry next. Yeah. Probably that. Yeah. No, it was a natural extension though. We just like people just come to us asking, do you know engineers? And after placing a number of people, within days, typically it's like, I guess, maybe we should start doing this. So it wasn't like it was just forced upon us, I suppose. So, but
Yeah.
you know, but when you got like, you know, the big FANG companies, people from there asking me, do we know people? This is happening pretty regularly. And it's like, don't you have recruiting teams? You know, what they're like, yeah, but do you know of anybody? We're like, this is weird. Stop. Are you?
Yeah.
But you know, it happens enough times. I suppose it just is what it is. You know, as they say, fish where the fish are.
Especially
So-
as desperate as everybody is, including the big companies. Like they can be more picky because they have more applicants, but at the same time, they're lacking in applicants.
Yeah.
Which sounds counterintuitive and self-contradictory, but it's not. I promise.
No, good talent is not. You know, it's just hard to find. It's really
Yeah.
hard to find. But people like us know good talent because we just know them.
You know,
Because you network.
takes one to
Right.
know one. So
And maybe that's one of the problems. I think recruiters don't invest enough time in actually getting to know tech. And it doesn't mean you have to be like a really great Python programmer to be a good recruiter, but it helps to like have that interest and just kind of know what's going on. Like, why would people use Python or Go, and what are the data technologies? And what are the needs?
I was listening to a separate podcast with a guy who specialized in Go job recruiting, and he's been focusing on careers in Go for 10 years. Go's not that old. Go's 14 years since 1.0.
Yeah.
So like that's a lot of time to invest in a specific language skill set, and to also work like as a contract, you know, recruiter for that kind of thing. But that focus and that networking gives him a skill set to say, no, this person knows what they're like. He may not write a line of code, but he knows what's needed to succeed in a Go software career.
Right.
And he can find the people with that skill set. So that's kind of, and I don't know how common that is to see recruiters spend that much time in one area of focus. I don't interact with recruiters enough to tell, because I ignore the LinkedIn messages from recruiters like most of us do.
Like the ones asking for Java experience from you? Like you're Right. Would you like to be a .NET developer?
I don't get as much Java as I get SQL and JavaScript.
I'm
like,
that's the same thing, right? So
Yeah, it's the same. So yeah.
They're very related. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to what you talk about a lot too, Joe, in the music industry, and that is this recruiter recognized early on that they wanted to focus, and also they must have recognized, hey, Go is this up and coming language. Like, this is going to be really big in a few years. I should get on this early. And there's a lot of value in identifying what tech is actually going to be really viable.
Well, it's kind of like combing the clubs, right? Trying to figure out, or the bars, trying to figure out the next bands. You know, I guess now that's SoundCloud and Spotify, but kind of same thing. You know, because. You know, but back in the day when you're like an A&R, you'd be doing that kind of stuff. You know, finding the untapped talent, right?
Yeah.
But you got to know what you're hearing. That's part of it. You got to be really keen into it. I think that's why people come to us for data recruiting. It's because we just really know what you would be looking for and who you'd be looking for versus somebody who's just like, yeah, I need somebody who does SQL and JavaScript for this data engineering job.
Yeah, right. To build out data pipelines to feed our machine learning infrastructure. It's like, you sure you want to do that in JavaScript with SQL?
Yeah, but it's all back by node. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So, but no, that's it. But it's a good filter though, right? And so, but it only comes through like knowing what to look for, and that's not easy. So, or it's really easy and we overthink it, but I don't think that's the case. So, but yeah, that's interesting. Why do you like Go so much? Why is Go the best language in the universe?
And tell us more about Go and data engineering, because that's kind of what I'm excited about.
Well, to be fair, Go is the best language in the universe because I say so, and my opinion is infallible and exact truth.
Cool.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree too.
I appreciate the honesty.
All hail Miriah.
Thank you. I think what I like about Go is it's easy to read, very similar to Python. But it also has a compiler, which helps me because I can't spell worth my life, and I love to have that check before I deploy anything. The ecosystem seems to be very developed, and like I've had a great experience with the community. Like, so Go's like I've had a lot of success with Go, so why wouldn't I say it's the best programming language? So I mean, I'm wearing a Gopher shirt. I have a Go
That's
anyway.
what that is. Okay, I saw the sunglasses. The rest of it is
This
cut
is
off.
my
Oh, got
this
it.
is
Okay.
the Go West conference shirt from last year.
What is
So
the when is the next Go West?
Go West is October 22nd of this year. We are accepting calls for papers. We haven't, so we're not quite ready to announce speakers or anything yet, but we are accepting call for papers. But go. The other thing that's really nice about Go, I think, is it works for the things I'm interested in. I have no interest in front end stuff. And so, like, I'm really more
I
interested
thought you were a
in,
JavaScript developer.
Yeah, I'm a JavaScript developer.
Okay.
But I have a lot of interest in, like, systems engineering, data engineering, heavy backend stuff. And that's kind of where Go fits in really well. Like, I have interest in other languages like Rust. I just don't write them for my career. So not my favorite, you know.
Makes sense.
But in your question to Go and data engineering, there's lots of benefits for Go in certain things. Go works really well with Postgres. There's a lot of Postgres libraries. There's a lot of distributed databases that are built out of Go. You've got Cockroach, you've got Vitesse, you've got dgraph, which is a graph database. Yeah,
is in Go.
Docker engines in Go. Yeah. You know, you've got a lot of things with that. But what's always been a weak point with Go for large scale data, like we have some bootstrap stuff at Weave that works really well for our use case. But it's very much a narrow funnel and it's not optimized. It does a lot of type conversions. It's not really like the best, but it works. But I was doing Go recently released their generic stuff. I was doing some research on it for a talk I gave, and now I'm like, Go might actually work for like real data engineering now. Like
that'd be cool.
It's their generics are not like as good as Rust generics. I'll say that, but it gives you a lot more ability to actually move large amounts of data without having to do type conversions every 5 steps and without having to do as many like control flow, logic-y, business-y, really dumb crap, and then have to go back and re-optimize for the compiler, and then go back and re-optimize for your edge cases, and then re-optimize for your network. Like it's which is how people did it before. Like, so it could be beneficial. I think the problem with Go and data engineering is the same problem with Go and machine learning, though. That's not what the projects are, right? The Go open source project, Kubernetes, they're Docker, they're like, great, we have some databases, but those aren't like really the only Go Pachyderm. Pachyderm is the only like real data engineering project written in Go. And I guess Kubeflow, but that's like fake. It's not a fake project, it's fake Go. That's what I meant.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I'm gonna have to pick your
like
brain.
I mean anyway.
Oh,
it's still the Kubernetes parts Go, but there's a lot of anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, there's a talk on Kubeflow at the next ML meetup.
Ooh.
In a couple weeks if
when
you
is
want to
that?
come. The 26th?
I think we'll probably be there if we can pull it off,
The
Joe.
fourth
I think I'll be gone, but you
Tuesday?
can go
Yeah.
to it.
The fourth Tuesday is the 26th. Yes, the 26th will be the Kubeflow talk at the Machine Learning Utah meetup. But like, yeah, Pachyderm has been and still is like the only real pipelining tool written in Go. I mean, it is Kubernetes hosted, which I think for a long time limited the people that would use it. Now it doesn't.
Yeah.
Now everybody's on Kubernetes. Everybody and their dog is on Kubernetes, so it doesn't make a difference.
And
but
your dogs too, probably.
my dogs are also on Kubernetes. So
Yeah.
They're actually core contributors.
Hey, Ryan Russin, he's on your chat. He's speaking.
What's up? Thanks for the shout out.
Nice.
He's the one
Awesome.
speaking on the Kubeflow at the meetup.
Sweet.
Nice.
Look forward to it, Ryan.
He's gonna bring his A
Excellent.
game. Yeah. Bring your B game. but if you want to bring your A game, that's up to you.
At least
so
the
that's
beginning.
awesome. Ryan's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So and just if we could get the more community support and more, they're just barely. I do know the guy who does the Go Sdk for Apache Beam.
Ooh.
That was never released, to my understanding. I haven't followed it for a while, but that was never released in G8. Like the Go SDK was always in beta.
Okay.
Because the way that they had to generate all of the interfaces for the different types made it really not a great pipelining tool. Again, Go was limited. He's rewriting everything now that generics is out. So there's a lot of future potential with that, and if Go can work with Apache Beam on a Flink engine, then Go becomes a way better tool for streaming.
That'd be cool.
Go becomes a better connection with Kafka. It already has great database tools. So then you can start expanding to other things that are not necessarily your standard relational databases. And then again, Pachyderm does all of your does machine learning pipelines. So there's stuff coming, it's just not there. Python has it, so people do Python. Right. Java has it, so people do Java.
Exactly. And I was
Ryan's
going to
bring a C game too, by the way. So
okay,
just FYI,
excellent.
he's going to.
Does that mean he's going to be writing his demos in C?
Yes, exactly. Actually, C#
live.
So
compiled live. Yeah.
So actually, shout out to my friends over at Moroxa. They're doing some cool stuff with Go. I think Conduit. Nice. Which is like a real-time data pipelining tool built into the application layer itself. I think that was written in Go, which is pretty dope. So, check out Conduit. I think you'd be way into that.
And to Mark's question,
always into anything written in Go.
Yeah.
Mark asks, how does Go make it to mainstream data engineering and data science projects? What are the roadblocks? Python mainly, I think, is the big roadblock.
Python
and maturity, right? Like having generics.
Community, no, I think there's a lot of SRE and reliability tooling for your operation stuff in Go, and nobody has ever tried to do anything besides backend web services or operation stuff in Go, and so it's just never you have to have a community behind it. And when you don't have people sponsoring those projects, nobody's going to look at it. The closest thing we have right now is the fact that Kubernetes is running all of our deployments. It's okay, great. Now what can we do to work with Kubernetes? Oh, Kubernetes is written in Go. Maybe we should look at Go. That's about all we get.
But I remember when Python wasn't a data language. It was like the web language and a bunch of other stuff. I remember SLC Python for the first bit was web development. That's all we talked about. Then I started doing data talks. And obviously I'm so cool, brought it, that's why it took off.
That's when
it was all you.
Yeah. So the roadblock is getting Joe to talk about it.
That's it.
So I'll speak at your Go meetup.
Yes, that's what we need. We need Joe to start coming to the Go meetups, and then
it'll just magically become the next language. No, but I think it was, the machine learning libraries was a big thing for Python early on. That was adopted. sklearn, then all the deep learning libraries, and pandas, I think, was the big one that really, and NumPy as well, that changed a lot of stuff. And it's institutionalized at this point. But I can't say that this is the end all be all. I know that they're working on some improvements to Python, but Go just seems like a better fit for a lot of, especially engineering use cases where it just works. Python, I think, is a kind of a crappy fit, honestly, for some data engineering workloads, because it's the second best language at everything. That's what Python will say about itself, and it's true. So but it's not great.
Yeah, generally I'd advise against processing data at scale within Python. In other words, you can use PySpark where it's just an API and you're controlling Java or Scala behind the scenes. But and natively, at scale, it's not necessarily the best. It depends on what you're doing with it. We'll see. I mean, partially it's going to be a race between Go and Python to see which one improves faster in terms of, on the one hand,
and Rust will beat
libraries.
them all, because that's what happens.
Yeah,
Rust is just going to crush everything. Yeah.
I can't wait to get back into checking out new programming languages, or I guess old ones. Back when this book's done next week. So
Julia is getting a lot of
that's going to be a big one too.
MLs and data.
Todd's damn it,
Todd. I'm not saying we should start deploying Julia stuff to prod. I'm saying as far as getting decent libraries for research and investigation and building models, Julia.
Yeah, it's definitely becoming bigger.
Interesting.
I don't think it's gonna stay though. It's like Kotlin. Like everybody in the Kotlin community wants Kotlin to be like really important, and it's just not going to.
Or like Lua that totally stalled out, right? Like Lua was really big for a few years, and then some of the
I
core
remember trying to
contributors
learn that. 'Cause I'm like,
dropped
I'll need that
off.
someday.
Yeah.
I was like, nope, won't need that. But
Well, I mean, I just want. I come from. I did MATLAB in college. Like I come from physics. MATLAB was king. People didn't, but then the people
Matt
that
knows
didn't
MATLAB.
think it were unknowledge,
don't.
uneducated. So I just want languages to have math, the numerics.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But Scala was going to be the language too that took over engineering, data science, and that is dying on the vine.
Still running on the JVM, so there's your problem.
Oh,
sorry. I'm sorry. People,
flames on that.
If you don't know, I just bash all languages on the JVM. I don't have any personal beefs with Scala.
I just bash all languages. Period. Done.
Awesome.
It makes it much easier.
Martin, he's going to start a VB revolution. I think that's awesome. So
this is called Delphi.
There's going to be a just-in-time compiler for Visual Basic, or I assume that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, it's awesome. Cool, we're coming up on time. But thanks for being on the show. It's good to always chat with you guys. I feel like we don't do it enough, so I'll have to meet you down in Lehigh one of these days soon. Or
Please do.
Maybe we'll do UDEM from one of your offices.
We should actually. That would be fun. We should move it. We started moving it around right before COVID.
Yeah, we were at Overstock and then Recursion, and both of which I don't know that they're.
Recursion's been hitting me up for spaces. So.
Oh, okay. Well,
Swift.
That's how that goes. Swift for ML. Yeah, that was fun. Swift's actually fun. I love Swift. I was dorking around with that last year, learning to make AR apps, but it's cool. I actually like Swift a lot, but it's super niche. So, well, cool. Yeah, thanks. And upcoming shows, we got Emily Shario on the Monday Morning Data Chat. She's a VC out of Amplify. Talk about data teams and some cool stuff there. Got JU from TigerGraph on Friday. Got Bill Inman, of all people, on Monday Morning Data Chat on April 18th. That's going to be dope. And then Zhamak Bigani from Data Mesh on the Friday show on the 22nd. So pretty stacked crew.
Thanks for squeezing us in. We don't
anytime
quite measure up to those guys. But...
this is one of our most fun conversations. Honestly, we've had many fun conversations, but this.
I was keeping it lack of spicy, so.
Yeah.
I'm a bit disappointed, Todd. Your spice level was kind of like pretty low today. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I was.
We'll have to have you on again.
Wade in.
Yeah, anytime. But
Mariah brought the trash talk though, so it's great. Like we want to generate some controversy.
No, just don't bring up the JVM. I can't resist.
Cool. So we'll do I think a JVM topic at the Go meetup.
That's how great the JVM is.
Yeah.
Is there something like there must be some hybrid, just like you have Jython with Python, right? There's got to be some kind of hybrid Go and JVM.
Speaking of ill things.
That is disgusting, Matt. All right, I'm gonna go.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
I'm gonna go vomit now. So, cool. Well, all right. Thanks to the audience. Great questions. So again, check out the next shows. Hope you all have a good weekend. We'll see you on Monday. So later, y'all.
Cheers.